This is the presentation on evidences for evolution for online biology at Oklahoma City Community College. I am Dennis Anderson. Evolution is the key concept that enables us to understand most things in biology. A famous scientist once said, "Nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution." In the past 150 years, scientists have accumulated overwhelming evidence that evolution happens. Evidence comes from the fields of paleontology, comparative anatomy, biogeography, embryology, genetics, molecular biology, and other disciplines. I will briefly discuss each of these. Paleontology is the study of fossils. It allows us to see anatomical similarities between living species and organisms that lived in the past. We can see that life has changed over time. Millions of species have been found from the past that are different from life today. A very small percentage of animals that died in the past are fossilized and buried in the earth in the order in which they died. The oldest fossils are the deepest. There are names for the various time periods of the past. They are arranged in the Earth's crust like a stack of books, with the youngest time period on the top. We are now in the Holocene period. There are also three longer spans of time called eras. Paleozoic is the oldest. It means ancient life. Mesozoic is the middle era, and Cenozoic is the present era. We always find the same kinds of plants and animals in the order depicted here. We never find birds below fish or reptiles before trilobites. If the fossils appeared in a random order, it would contradict the theory of evolution. The order we find the fossils in confirms evolution. There's a similar picture in your book that might be easier to see than this one. A big event that happened in the past was that animals moved from the ocean onto land. This was predicted a long time ago, and over the years we have accumulated evidence that shows how it came about. Initially, we knew that fish live in the sea and amphibians live on the land, but they may spend some time living in the water. Fish appear to be the ancestors of amphibians. They have several anatomical structures in common. Both have a backbone, ribs, and jaws. The two pair of fins that fish have on the lower part of their bodies could potentially be modified into legs. Evolution is often a remodeling job of modifying a certain structure to perform a new function in the descendants of an animal or other living thing. Here is a grouper fish, just one of thousands of different kinds of fish in the ocean. It doesn't appear to be the fish that would evolve into an amphibian. The amphibian has 4 legs and a tail. Internally, it has a backbone and ribs. The fish has fins instead of legs, but does have a tail, backbone, and ribs. Scientists found fossils of this next fish. Notice it has fins attached to lobes that look like little legs. There are rudimentary bones and muscles in the lobes. This fish is named the coelacanth. Surprisingly, a few have been caught alive in the ocean. They are now referred to as living fossils. It seems to be capable of crawling out of water onto land. Next, scientists found fossils of the earliest amphibians. This one is Ichthyostega. It had lungs so it could survive on land and gills for breathing in water. It had legs with muscles and bones, including digits. Ichthyostega retained a fish-like tail. In 2004, scientists found the fossil that tied the whole sequence together. Its name was Tiktaalik. It is the transitional animal that bridges the gap between ocean life and life on the land. The first two animals on the left are definitely fish. The two at the top are tetrapods, or animals with 4 legs. Tiktaalik has been called a fishapod because it is half fish and half tetrapod. Tiktaalik is the first complete transitional specimen between fish and land-dwelling tetrapods. The fishapod Tiktaalik is a transitional fossil because it has characteristics of 2 different animals and shows the transition from one species to another. The fish characteristics are fish gills, scales, and fins. The tetrapod characteristics are tetrapod rib bones, tetrapod lungs, and a tetrapod mobile neck with a separate pectoral girdle. These and other characteristics make it half fish and half tetrapod, a true transitional fossil. Whales evolved in a reverse order than the original tetrapods. They went back to the sea. Pachycetus was a carnivore that lived on the shore near a shallow sea in Pakistan about 50 million years ago. It would venture into the water to prey on seafood. Eventually, it spent more and more time in the water. Ambulocetus was the walking whale. It spent most of the time in the water swimming with its webbed feet, but could still walk on the land. Rhodocetus was a better swimmer than Ambulocetus. His hip bones were not attached to the backbone, so he had more flexibility. Basilosaurus was a huge whale, 65 feet long, that had a tail fluke like modern whales. His hind legs were greatly reduced and front legs were flippers. Some modern whales have a vestigial pelvis, and a few even have vestigial legs attached. Scientists hypothesized that whales must have evolved from land animals with legs, but it was not until the 1990s that most of the transitional fossils on this slide were discovered, confirming their hypothesis. There are many more fossils of extinct whales not illustrated here. Biologists hypothesize that birds descended from dinosaurs. This was confirmed by the recent discovery of several dinosaurs that were covered with feathers, and also the discovery of transitional fossils that bridge the gap between dinosaurs and birds. One of these was Archaeopteryx. Archaeopteryx had several dinosaur traits as well as several bird traits. It had feathers, wings, and a wishbone. All of these are bird traits. It also had traits of reptiles, including teeth, a long bony tail, claws on the wing, and scales on the legs. One of the best preserved animals from the past was this baby mammoth, frozen about 40,000 years ago. Thousands of fossils discovered by scientists clearly show that life is constantly evolving, and thus confirming the theory of evolution. Comparative anatomy involves comparing the anatomy of different groups of animals to find similarities and differences. Here we see the skeletons of a mammal and a bird. They both have a similar pattern of 4 limbs attached to the body, a backbone, a vertebra, and a skull. The mammal has a long bony tail, and the bird only has a vestigial tail that does not protrude from the body. The mammal has teeth, and the bird does not. The bird has a huge sternum for flight muscle attachment. We conclude that they had a common ancestor that had a skeleton made of bones with legs, a backbone, tail, and skull. Mammals modified this skeleton to work better for running, while birds took the same basic pattern and modified it for flight. When you look at various mammals, you will see variations of the basic mammal skeleton. When you look at birds, you will see variations of the basic bird skeleton. All demonstrate descent with modification. All vertebrates have the basic same skeleton made of bones. The same bones have been modified or remodeled for different purposes in various vertebrates. They are used for flying, walking, crawling, and arm support. The reason for the similar skeletons is that all vertebrates descended from a common ancestor that had this type of skeleton. Since all the bones in this example are the same, we say they are homologous. Homologous structures are derived from a common ancestor. These animals all have homologous structures in their skeletons. Can you name any of these animals? The upper left is a lion, and the upper right is a rhinoceros. The bones of the rhino are bigger, and it has a horn. On the bottom are skeletons of a chimp and gorilla. Their skeletons are more similar to each other because they are more closely related. Note they walk in a hunched over position on their knuckles. At the top is a diagram of an insect. There are millions of different insects. What they all have in common is 3 pair of segmented legs, or 6 total, a segmented body, and the body has 3 different regions. The regions are head, thorax, and abdomen. The spider is similar. It has a segmented body with 8 segmented legs. Spider's body is divided into 2 regions, the cephalothorax and the abdomen. The insects inherit their body plan from a common ancestor. And likewise, spiders inherit their body plan from a common ancestor. The two common ancestors inherited the segmented body and legs from an ancestor who existed before them. Comparative anatomy is a powerful tool used to investigate evolutionary relationships.